Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity Podcast. Join Stewart Heath for down-to-earth conversations with top professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders who have a story to tell. Let's get rolling.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity Podcast. Today, our guest is none other than the Raymond Cardinale of E3 Performance Solutions. I've had the pleasure of him being my good friend for 25 years. I'm afraid neither one of us want to admit that. But Raymond, thank you so much for being here. We're going to talk all about you this morning for the next 15 or 20 minutes. So again, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
You know, Raymond, when you think back to, what's now yours and ours very long careers, are there any moments that you had that you saw were pivotal that really changed the game for your career?
Good question. Yeah, many of them. So I grew up in the Bronx, New York. We were not a very wealthy family, and my dad taught us work ethic, and everything's just a speed bump. So whatever happens, just figure out a plan to get over it. I didn't realize how valuable that was till I got into the world. I went through college funding myself, figuring it out, and I owned a couple little businesses just because I was always kind of an entrepreneurial kind of guy. You know, when you go to a student union job and they pay $8 an hour and you need $20 an hour to survive, you figure out how to make those jobs. But one of the biggest pivotal moments early in my career is I got out of college and went to work for Xerox in the South, and I'm from New York, and I'm only 22. So it was a huge shock. And I was doing really bad the first 3 months because I knew everything. Of course, I knew everything, right? And I had a mentor that grabbed me, took me for a ride, and he said, we have two options today. One is I'm going to fire you, or the second is you listen to me and do everything I tell you to do in the next 3 months, and I promise you, you'll double what you're making now. And if you don't, I'll write you a personal check. And I told him he was wrong. I'll do it. I know you're wrong, because I was so stubborn. But what he taught me was how to study, how to invest in yourself, how to read the room, the processes of how to communicate to people. And of course, he saw it in me. I didn't see it in me. And he was a mentor of mine for 20 years till he passed away about 7 or 8 years ago. But that really set me on a path of, okay, you don't have to know the answers. You just have to know where to go get them, which really, really created a lot of success in my life. I had a couple talents I didn't know I had, like we know, because when we grow up, you don't know what you're doing. And when I met, I came to Nashville after I sold a company in Dallas, and I met a guy that had a company that he was selling these training modules, and he was selling them over the phone with 12 people on the phone. And I'm like, this is a much bigger corporate sale. And he didn't understand how to do it. I did. So we partnered and I did it. But I always was able to look at how you execute and get things done, not, what are you doing now? So that all came from that guy teaching me how to study, look at the end game, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously when COVID hit, it was real for everybody. We pivoted our business and turned it into an online business and, just kind of kept going. But all those came from the hard work ethic my dad taught me. And this was my dad's saying, there's a wall, you got to get on the other side. You can go through it, you can go over it, you can go around it, but you got to get on the other side. So stop worrying about the wall, worry about how to get on the other side. Yeah. I know that sounds crazy, but he was like that. He's another generation. He passed away a couple of years ago at 90. And then this guy, Bob Banner in North Carolina, just really took me under his wing and taught me how to study, how to pay attention to people that are doing it right, that kind of stuff. So that was probably the biggest thing.
Your dad's advice sounds a lot like sort of a World War II boot camp kind of a thing.
That's him. Yeah.
You can go over it, through it, or around it. But one way or another, you got to get on the other side of the wall. So everybody's career has some unexpected challenges and bumps in the road, if you want to call it. I might call it something else along the way. But You got any of those you want to share, how you get over them, how you dealt through it and plowed through it? It might be related to something you just hinted at a minute ago, but
Yeah.
how have you dealt with some unexpected challenges in your career?
So I'm a big studier of people that are doing it already successfully. I read everything. There's not really a book you can bring up that I don't know either the author or the book, right? Because I've just taken that as a real personal thing for me. And one of the things I've learned is leaders are like ducks on a pond, right? They look calm, but underneath their feet are going crazy. So that I have that skill, and that's why I become a pretty good leader where I don't show that I'm freaking out. I take a breath and then get an action plan together. So I've had many of those little bumps in my career, but in 2008 and 9, it was a big one. Number one, we were selling, but people weren't paying. The economy was bad. The stock market was bad. I don't know if some of these listeners might not remember that, how bad it was. People were laying people off by the thousands, and my partner goes bankrupt on me. And you're sitting there going, okay, there's no money coming in. The business is going bad. I have 2 kids. I have a family. So what do I do? So, you got to take a breath. You got to get it out. And then I just started going, okay, let me go back to my basics, invest in myself, scale back, right? I had a very smart man tell me, don't spend good money after bad decisions. So you got to scale back, stop it, and then you got to reinvent yourself. And I remember going for a run one day and saying, okay, I know it's crazy, but what do I have that I could sell? Like what have I built? Well, I have content. I'm a good coach. I'm a good consultant. So I just started consulting. I got clients. They gave me multiple year contracts. I started building the business back up. But the great thing is my family really never lost anything. It was just hustle for me. But I did that by saying, okay, stop, listen to the noise. What do you have? Okay, just work with that. But that was a big one because that hit everybody. It wasn't just me. It was hard to. I remember I was interviewing, I was interviewing for a new job, thinking maybe I get a job, and everybody wanted to pay you no money and give you commission, which would take you 2 years to make any money. And so I got a job in Jackson, Mississippi, an offer. We were living in Nashville. It was an unbelievable job. I was a national sales manager leader. My wife said, I'll miss you, but you can go get the job. I said, okay, you don't want to move. I get it. So we were going through all that stuff, and a lot of people went through all that stuff, but I didn't go bankrupt. They paid everybody off, and I got the business back up and running by just saying, what can you do to move forward? Which that was probably the biggest hiccup in my life.
Yeah. Well, and having lived through that with you, you are one of my heroes in that regard, because frankly, I didn't know how you were going to do it, but you figured out a way. Just by, you didn't dwell on the past. You didn't get angry at your partner going bankrupt on you and whatnot. You just moved forward. You got on the other side of the wall, like your dad's advice. So, you mentioned COVID earlier, and again, you and I are old guys, and we've been around a while. And new technologies and new things or new products come out. How do you address learning new things? Because I absolutely hate learning a new piece of software, but every few years we got to buckle down and do it. So how do you address it?
That's a really good question, because as you get older, those get harder and harder.
It does. Yeah.
So my mentality was always to build systems, right? Processes and systems, because processes stay, people leave. Well, you have to be up on what's going on if you have processes, right? Like now the new thing is AI, and nobody really knows how to use it. They're using it in some areas really well, but everybody's a little scared of it or don't understand it. So I try to stay up on everything that's going on. I have a really one thing I really thank God for giving me. I don't care if there's people in the room smarter than me. That doesn't even affect me, because I know how to execute. you could come up with the idea, but I know how to execute. I was like that as an athlete. I played minor league baseball. I wasn't as good athletically as the people on the field, but I knew how to execute. So I always try to stay up on what's going on. I try to hang around with experts that are doing it, and then ready, fire, aim. Just go, because you learn more by playing the game, right? If you just start, oh, I learned this, we'll do more of that, less of that, and you just go. And so there's a book I read years ago. It's called It's Not the Big That Eat the Small, It's the Fast That Eat the Slow. And just get out there and do it. You're smart enough, or you have smart enough people around you to figure it out, but you have to make mistakes to get there. And I bring that back to a lot of how I grew up. But Xerox used to say, I know they had all these crazy terms, and when I was there, they were it was before political correctness in the office, so they could say stuff to you. They used to say, if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
Make mistakes. Don't make the same one twice, and make sure you understand the cost of mistake. But they wanted you to move. So I try to find, I don't know anything about this. Who knows about this? Surround yourself with people, read about it, learn about it, and then don't be afraid to try it. So that's kind of how I've handled it. But you're right. You have to embrace change, right? We know that.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to embrace change, what do they say? 95% of the people fight change, and the other 5% lie. So, right. I mean, just, we're not human beings are not made to like change. You have to embrace it and understand. So
that's so true. I'm reading a book right now, and I actually heard somebody on CNBC this morning talking about it. It's like, everybody's got a strategy. If you went down to the bar right now, you'd find a whole bunch of people who got strategies. They know exactly what to do, but it's the execution that wins the day. And that's just so true. And you see it in great management teams all over the place. So, and one last little step, my very first boss at the local grocery store gave me that advice. If you're not making mistakes, you're not working. He told me that right after I just spilled 4 cases of 2-liter Cokes all over the floor. And I thought I was going to have to pay for all of them. And he just said, I was hustling, I was working. It just happens, So he was really great about it.
So what's the Mike Tyson comment? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, you got to, you think your plan, you're not going to execute it the way you think. Learn how to get around that. Yeah.
But and you got to fail. Most of us, that's how we learn. And you don't fail while you're in the think tank, So, all right. Last question. If you had one nugget of advice for anyone wanting to follow in your footsteps, what would it be?
So I would say, that's a really good question. I would say don't do it.
Yeah, it's usually don't follow me.
Yeah. I would say there's probably 3 things when you say it, frame it like that I would say I would coach a younger person to do. One is be a tenacious learner. Read everything, study everything, get in front of people that are over your head. I'll tell you a real quick story. I was selling for Xerox down in North Carolina, and a friend of mine bought a office furniture dealership. He was with the manufacturer board dealership in Hartford, Connecticut. And he's like, I need a salesperson. And back then you could make really good money doing it. I wanted to move back to New England anyway. So I go there. I'm there about 6 months. I learn the business, and then he starts buying real estate, and he goes, here, you could be the president. You can run it. And it was about a $5 million company at the time. We got up to about 12 million. So I had about 12 employees, 15 employees. I'm 24, 25. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I say, okay, 2 of my big competitors have 50-year-old guys that own it and run it, which back then I thought was funny. I started taking them out to lunch, just one at a time. It took me 6 months to get my first lunch appointment. And I just said, just tell me how you did it. I don't want to do any competition things, but I'm young, you're successful. And they started talking to me and imparting all this wisdom because they had it. And I wasn't trying to steal business and all. And then they became a really good business relationship where there was a bid on the street. They would call me and say, okay, let's both go in here and make some money and let the best guy win. Let's not lowball. So it became a good thing. But I always did stuff like that. Like, I find people who are doing it and say, I'm going to hang around you because I want to figure out what you're doing and how I can do that. The second thing I would think is what we just talked about is you got to embrace change. You got to embrace change. So I have a 21-year-old, I have twins, boy and girl twins. My daughter, under her arm, tattooed "embrace the chaos," because I've said that her whole life. When there's stuff going on in the film, just embrace the chaos, look at what's going on, and don't run away from it, run towards it. So you have to be able to understand change happens. And then the last thing, which I think has helped me a lot, is be more excited about execution than creation. What I mean by that is I'll take an idea from anybody if it's good. I'm not egotistical on whose thought it was. I'm like, how to get, I'll say, hey, Stewart, here's what we're going to do. You come up and oh, no, that's better. Let's do that. I can help you execute. I don't really care where the idea comes from, which builds people to be part of your team because they know their voice is heard. Right. Those are the three things I would probably say.
Sort of MySpace versus Facebook.
Exactly. Right.
Zuckerberg didn't come up with the idea of social media, but he executed it.
Right. Right. But, if you look in history, most of the people that have built stuff like Microsoft and all that just got there first or second and weren't afraid to try and make mistakes and and then by the time everybody else caught up, they were so far ahead, right? Because they had the learning curve. So my thing is, let's go figure it out. So I was in a client yesterday and we're talking about a new pricing thing and they were a little bit, I don't know if it'll work. Okay, let's go make some calls. Because you're not going to buy it. Let's go talk to somebody that's going to buy it. And the data will tell us if we need to raise it or lower it.
Right.
I've always been like that. Let me go in the field and figure it out. And they'll tell us what we can and cannot do.
Right. Yeah. So let the market tell you what they want and how they want it. And then we deliver it that way. So that's great. Raymond Cardinale, thank you so much for your time. I hope this story will inspire a lot of other people. And so thank you everybody for watching our podcast and come back for the next one and let us know what you thought. So thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity podcast. If you'd like to be a guest, visit growthgraceprosperity.com/guest. We'd love to hear your story.